When we think of Abraham, one of the most important figures in the Judeo-Christian and Islamic traditions, we often imagine him as a man solely connected to monotheistic faith. But have you wondered about his true origins? Get ready, because today we will explore the shocking links between Abraham and the ancient Sumerian civilization that will leave you speechless. Imagine a vast territory, a place where rivers dance amidst desert landscapes like arteries of life in a body of dry land. This place, called Mesopotamia, means the land between two rivers, referring to the Tigris and the Euphrates. Thousands of years ago, long before great civilizations like Greece or Rome arose, this corner of the world witnessed the birth of something completely new and astonishing. In Mesopotamia, the first cities, the first forms of writing, and perhaps the first glimpses of what we today call civilization were born. Our story begins more than 5,000 years ago, in a time when human beings still mostly lived in small agricultural villages. These early inhabitants had learned to cultivate the land and raise animals, but their lives deeply depended on the whims of nature. They relied on the rains, the cycles of the rivers, and the fertility of the soil. It was here where Mesopotamia offered an unexpected gift. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers, though often unpredictable and dangerous, brought with them the promise of abundance. When their waters overflowed, they left behind fertile lands perfect for agriculture. However, not everything was simple. The Tigris and Euphrates were both a blessing and a challenge. Their floods were not always predictable and occasionally occurred at the worst times, destroying crops and villages. Despite this, the people living there did not give up. Instead of fleeing, they decided to stay and face nature. This was the first great step toward civilization. Over time, they began to build canals to direct the water, dikes to contain the floods, and irrigation systems that allowed them to control when and where to water their fields. This engineering was the start of something great. Among the first cities, one stood out, considered by many as the cradle of civilization. Imagine a place full of activity, with dusty streets bustling with the comings and goings of farmers, traders, artisans, and priests. In the heart of these cities stood the ziggurats, enormous stepped temples that seemed to touch the sky. These structures were not only religious centers but also nuclei of political and economic life. Important decisions were made there, surpluses of food were stored, and ceremonies were held to honor the gods. Sumerian society was defined not only by its ability to master nature but also by its innovations. It was the Sumerians who, about 5,000 years ago, created something that would forever change the history of humanity: writing. On tablets of wet clay, they used a wedge-shaped tool to inscribe symbols. This system, known as cuneiform, began as a way to record commercial transactions. Over time, these symbols evolved, allowing the Sumerians to record stories, laws, and knowledge. For the first time, human thoughts were immortalized in something more durable than memory. They believed their world was governed by gods representing the forces of nature. Among their most important gods were Anu, the god of the sky, Enlil, the god of the wind, and Ea, the god of water and wisdom. For them, life was a delicate balance between chaos and order, and humans had the task of maintaining that harmony through rituals, work, and respect for the gods. In this vast and fertile plain of Mesopotamia was an impressive city called Ur. It was a place full of life, where the echo of markets vibrated in the air, and great ziggurats stood out like artificial mountains challenging the sky. Ur was a center of commerce, culture, and religion. Here, in this vibrant city surrounded by deserts and rivers, begins the story of a man whose name would resonate through the ages: Abraham. Abraham was not a king nor a warrior in the traditional sense. He was an ordinary man, a shepherd living with his family in this city. However, there was something special about him, something that made him different from the crowds rushing through the streets of Ur. Abraham was a man seeking something greater, something he could not find in markets full of gold and spices, nor in the temples dedicated to the Sumerian gods. It is said that Abraham, son of Terah, belonged to a family that, like many others, prospered in the city. His father was a maker of idols, a lucrative occupation in a culture where every home had its own gods. However, Abraham was not satisfied with this practice. Something inside him told him that true power could not reside in figures of clay or metal. His intuition led him to believe in a single, invisible, and all-powerful God, beyond the rituals and temples of Ur. This thought was revolutionary, almost unthinkable in his time, but Abraham could not ignore that inner voice, that connection with something greater. Then something extraordinary happened. God spoke to Abraham and called him to leave his land, his kin, and his father's house, and set out for a land that he would show him. These words were not only a call to faith but also a challenge. They meant leaving behind the comfort of Ur, a rich city full of opportunities, to embark on a journey into the unknown. Abraham accepted the challenge. The rest is history, a story of faith, sacrifice, and trust in the divine. Abraham not only embarked on a physical journey but also a spiritual one. His story represents the transition from a deeply polytheistic culture to a new understanding of divinity, monotheism. With every step of his journey, Abraham carried with him not only his faith but also the legacy of an ancient civilization, the very cradle of humanity. It is fascinating to imagine Abraham walking through those ancient trade routes, leaving behind the imposing structures of Ur as he moved toward a destination he could not see but trusted completely. This story is not just a tale of the past, it is a reflection of the human quest for purpose, meaning, and connection with the divine. Abraham's roots are not only in faith but also in the rich history of one of the world's earliest civilizations, Sumeria. Perhaps by knowing his origin, we understand a little more about our own journey and the stories that, like ancient rivers, continue to flow through time to reach us.